Protests across the nation taking place today in response to President Donald Trump's national emergency declaration. The protests are opposing the order signed Friday that freed up billions to construct a wall along the southern U.S. border with Mexico.
The move has divided Congress over the president's use of executive power and whether there really is an emergency. At least 2 lawsuits by watchdog groups are challenging the legality of the declaration. And California's Attorney General said Sunday he'll definitely and imminently file a suit.
Cronkite News reporter Micah Bledsoe was at a rally outside the White House this morning. She joins us live from our Washington, D.C. bureau with what took place. Micah?
The mood today in Lafayette Square was upbeat. The hundreds who gathered in front of the White House chanted along as speakers took the stage. Despite the mood, however, those speakers from organizations like the American Civil Liberties Union and MoveOn.org had a serious message.
Is there an emergency? Is there an emergency?
The rally came just 72 hours after President Trump stood in the Rose Garden and declared a national emergency along the U.S. southern border.
I didn't need to do this, but I'd rather do it much faster.
Trump says the declaration will let him divert $6.6 billion to construction of a border wall. Dulce Lopez, a DACA recipient who comes from a family of immigrants, says it was a must she attend today's protest.
The wall is a sign of white supremacy. That wall is nothing else but a sign of racism.
Protesters not only challenged the need for a wall, they questioned whether there is an emergency and whether the president can shift funds without congressional approval. And protesters like Sister Ardith Platty thinks it's not what America should be about.
Well, we are one people. We are a nation of immigrants. All of our forebears came before us here. So we want to be a welcoming nation and come back to the values of the United States.
Lopez says the real emergency is removing the current administration from office.
It is really a symbol to separate the brown people coming to the U.S.
But FAIR Director of Research Matthew O'Brien said Friday that the country doesn't have to be facing an imminent crisis for the president to declare an emergency.
I think the emergency refers more to the need of the president to use power that he would not ordinarily use in the course of his everyday activities and to shift priorities without needing to wait for Congress to debate on the issue and then pass some kind of specific legislation.
But Sister Platty says the president should listen to the protesters.
Well, it's really an important day because President's Day is one day that we really come to speak to our president.
Today's rally at the White House was one of scores that organizers said were going on around the country to protest Trump's actions. And they said one of those rallies even took place in Tucson earlier today. In Washington, Micah Bledsoe, Cronkite News.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton took to Twitter today to speak against President Donald Trump's signing of a national emergency, saying the real national emergencies are relentless gun violence, children separated from families at the border, climate change, and Americans dying for lack of health care.